Trailer trash of the world rejoice. Dave Portnoy is back at it again. Time to think like an investor.
Is that gonna go really poorly for me?
One of the coolest developments in the investing world in recent years is something called the ETF. And if you're not exactly sure what an ETF is, it's really important to know. An ETF just stands for an exchange traded fund. And what that means is it's like a collection of different investor dollars. If you ever hear the word fund, it just means people are pooling their money together to invest in something together. It allows someone like you or I or whoever it might be with very little money and very little experience, honestly, and little sophistication to buy into investments in the stock market without having to self-manage and pick which stocks you're gonna buy and rebalance every quarter and all these things that you need to be doing as an investor. An ETF is a product that you can buy once and have access to an entire diversified portfolio of investments. If you're new to the channel, my name is Josh. I'm a certified financial planner and I actually run a wealth management firm called Haven. And what we do all day pretty much is help advise people or help them get into ETFs. And not necessarily, there's a lot of options, but ETFs are a huge part of that. And I'm always trying to keep my eye on what's developing in the world of ETFs because that's what our clients use. A lot of them. And it was a hilarious headline this week when I realized that Dave Portnoy from Barstool is releasing his own ETF. Now, I was a little unfair in the intro, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think his only followers are trailer trash. I think he's kind of like the frat guy of the internet. Frat king. Do they have kings? What do they have? Leaders? I'm not really sure. But all that being said, I think David Portnoy is an admirable guy. I've heard of his story about how he started Barstool and how he was in the subways handing out flyers. He was a hustler. And one of the things that he's now stepping in to try to revolutionize is the stock market and the world of ETFs. I want to set this straight here for a second. David Portnoy was known for being a professional media personality / sports gambler. He was really good at making sports bets. With the pandemic, essentially what happened is sports kind of came to a grinding halt because all these leagues are shut down and no one can really play and we all have to practice in bubbles. Sports betting wasn't what it once was. And Dave Portnoy sitting there tapping his feet like, what do I do? How am I gonna entertain people with my crazy bets, throwing insane amounts of money in the line? Well, the stock market's open all the time. I can just become Davey Day Trader, he calls himself, and I can just start buying all these different stocks and seeing what happens. I'm gonna short stocks, I'm gonna buy stocks, I'm gonna do these crazy strategies, and you know, who knows, maybe people will find that entertaining. And you know what, it was extremely entertaining. He absolutely nailed it. I found those videos really funny. If you haven't seen them, I recommend you do. Dave Portnoy has rubbed a lot of people in the finance industry the wrong way because he's been the recipient of a very expansive bull market. And what that means is the market is going up and up and up, and pretty much anybody who invested money in anything over the last 6 months has done really, really well. And he was a main beneficiary of that. I mean, he is a smart guy. To some degree, he might know what he was doing. But all this being said, he has garnered a ton of attention around the internet for being this Davey Day Trader personality where he's gonna show you his journey to making hundreds of thousands or losing hundreds of thousands. So now, armed with all of these followers across all these different social media platforms who are now also interested in investing because he is, and they see the kind of money he's making and losing and the roller coaster of excitement from that, Dave Portnoy realizes, I've got an audience here. Like, I've got people who are interested in hearing my perspective on the world of investment. So, you know what, he does something that I actually think is quite brilliant. And if you guys watch finance YouTube, you've probably heard of Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin and Andre Jick. If they really knew about the professional or the traditional finance industry, they would have done this a long time ago. They would have come out with the Graham Stephan ETF, Meet Kevin Mutual Fund. And that way, they would have had all of their users pile into an investment fund that they got paid based on. Now, there's a lot of work behind that. You probably have to partner with someone like iShares or one of these big ETF companies who's going to do this for you. But Dave Portnoy did it. He absolutely did it. And he came out with an ETF. So today, I want to dive into what is in that ETF, what's the strategy, and is this something you should even look at, or is it something you should avoid altogether? In an ETF, you can essentially have a computer program that systematically picks the stocks based on some factors, we'll get there, and then a human kind of just watches over the computer program to make sure that it's doing its thing and make sure that it's staying within the risk parameters or whatever, what have you, right? What Dave Portnoy is doing is he is building an ETF around a very specific factor, we could call it, which is sentiment. social media sentiment. It has a program, or AI as they call it, which scans the entire universe of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it might be, and they find stocks that are being talked about the most. It's reading and scraping the internet for different discussion about different stocks and then ranking, is that discussion positive? Is that discussion neutral? Or is that discussion negative? And if the discussion is negative, they place a sell on that stock and they don't want to own it. The discussion is very positive, they'll add it to the portfolio. What are people talking about? If they're saying good things, buy. If they're saying bad things, sell. It's interesting. It really is interesting because actually over the last 6 months, all these different names that have been doing extremely well. I mean, you can think of the GameStop fiasco and the AMC and all these different things that did well just because people were saying it was going to do well. That has actually done really well over the past few months, right? So in hindsight, this portfolio has fantastic returns and the strategy looks like it's doing really well. But this reminds me of an incredible analogy that Charlie Munger gives. And I don't mean to be the conservative finance guy who's always referencing the 90-year-olds, but Charlie Munger has wisdom. And what he said was, in the long term, of course, investing is a weighing machine. If you buy a stock and you own it for 20 years, eventually the price is going to come back into line with the real value of the underlying company. But in the short term, it's completely different. You are not necessarily in the short run trying to find the company that is the best. You're trying to find the company that everyone else thinks is the best. That's going to have momentum, and that's something you can buy high and sell a little bit higher. Very different from investing. That's more speculating, not so much investing. This is exactly what Dave Portnoy is doing. He's literally doing this exact same thing. He has essentially created the beauty contest ETF. And sure, over the past 6 months, that may have worked very well, but we have no idea where that's going in the future. So what's the lesson to be learned here? In my view, I get to see on the other end of this industry how much marketing is done to get people to invest in certain funds. What you have is marketing. This is fantastic marketing. I think there's already $280 million in the fund. People want to get behind Dave Portnoy. They want to back the guy that they're familiar with and they think he's funny and they support him. The lesson here is that as the world changes and as social media changes and we go away from having Tide detergent on billboards and we have more influencers who are driving the marketing dollars, what we're going to see isn't so much, oh, the Schwab ETF or the Vanguard ETF or the Fidelity Mutual Fund. We might start to see, here's what Dave Portnoy's invested in. If you buy this ETF, you can be a part of that. Or here's what Graham Stephan's invested in. If you want to support him and be part of what he's involved with, you can invest in that. Or here's the Josh Olfert ETF. This is what I would invest in. Watch out for the marketing, guys. Do whatever you can to try to discern between what is a great investment and what is great marketing. So anyways, if you got any value out of this video whatsoever, I appreciate you guys sitting in and hitting that subscribe button. We got to 2,000. I'm so excited. That is fantastic. Make sure to hit that like button below as well and turn on post notifications for more videos just like this one every single week. Until next time.